Good day, everyone. This is the PowerPoint presentation of the group Immanuel Kant Right Theory from SocSci 101N BSBA 1B. So I will be discussing a brief background about Immanuel Kant, and I will also talk about right theory. So let's start. This is a photograph of Immanuel Kant. He is a philosopher who tried to work out how human beings could be good and kind. He was born on April 22, 1724, in the Baltic city of Königsberg, which at that time was part of Prussia, that now belongs to Russia, renamed Kaliningrad. When he was 16, he entered the University of Königsberg. Then in 1755, he published General Natural History and Theory of the Heavens. He spent 15 years as a metaphysics lecturer. And in 1781, he published the first part of Critique of Pure Reason, where he sought to determine the limits and scope of metaphysics. This was followed by Critique of Practical Reason and the Critique of Judgment. He died on February 12, 1804 in his 80th year in Königsberg, Russia. So let's now discuss the rights theory. But first, let us find out the meaning of rights. So rights are entitlement to act or to have another individual act in a certain way. Minimally, rights serve as a protective barrier, shielding individuals from unjustified infringement of their moral agency by others. Let's move on to the 4 different rights. The first one is the right to access the truth. It says here that we have a right to be told the truth and to be informed about matters that significantly affect our choices. The second one, the right of privacy. It involves having the rights to do, believe, and say whatever we choose in our personal lives, so long as we do not violate the right of others. Third, the right not to be injured. This involves having the right not to be harmed or injured unless we freely and knowingly do something to deserve punishment, or we freely and knowingly choose the risk such injuries. Last but not the least, the right to what is agreed, which means we have a right to what has been promised by those with whom we have freely entered into a contract or agreement. Immanuel Kant came up with the idea of categorical imperative. So this strange-sounding term first appeared in his work, Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals. This categorical imperative states that act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will, that it should become a universal law. This means that one should always respect the humanity in others, and that one should only act in accordance with rules that could hold for everyone. Kant argued that the moral law is the truth of reason, and hence that all rational creatures are bound by the same moral law. Any alleged right to restrict the legitimate freedom of others would inject an ineradicable conflict into rights theory, and is ruled out of court for that reason alone. To forbid, by legal means, the freedom to violate right is therefore consistent with freedom according to universal laws of justice. Immanuel Kant was attempting to show why the right to freedom does not include the freedom to violate the rights of other people. Indeed, to claim any such right is a contradiction in terms. The right to freedom is a universal principle that applies to every rational agent, and to defend a supposed right To violate rights would undercut this universal principle at its very foundation and ultimately reduce it to absurdity. To claim a right by others to violate my right would be to claim that I have a duty not to enforce my right, and any such claim would destroy what is meant by a right in the first place. So as Kant put it, a free will and a will under moral values are one and the same. So freedom isn't an absence of government. A free society isn't one that allows people more and more opportunity to do whatever they happen to fancy. It is one that helps everyone become more reasonable. So the next slides would now answer 3 different questions such as, is death penalty ethical? Is same-sex marriage moral? And is euthanasia moral? Is death penalty ethical? The answer is yes. According to Immanuel Kant on capital punishment, he believed that if an offender has committed murder, he must die. In this case, no possible substitute can satisfy justice, because there is no parallel between death and even the most miserable life. He believed that we should not blindly follow God's command, as the morality is independent of God's will. He believed that morality is only based on feelings and consequences, although the morality of an action should be decided on the intention, and his maxim on the topic is that every crime deserves a punishment of equal severity. The next is same-sex marriage moral? Yes. Kant's views on sex and marriage give us the tool to defend same-sex marriage on moral grounds. The sexual objectification of one's partner can only be overcome when two people take responsibility for one another's overall well-being, and this commitment is enforced through legal coercion. Kant's views on the unnaturalness of homosexuality do not stand up to scrutiny, and he cannot, as often as he tries to, restrict the purpose of sex to procreation. Kant himself rules out marriage only when the partners cannot give themselves to one another equally. That is, if there is inequality of exchange, because same-sex marriage would be between equals and would allow homosexuals to express their desire in a morally appropriate way. It ought to be legalized. The last one, is euthanasia moral? No. According to Immanuel Kant, the suicide and euthanasia is forbidden. Conflating respect for persons and respect for people, and assuming that, in killing a person, either oneself or another, we are thereby undermining personhood. But an argument along these lines is faulty according to Kant's own standards. There is no reason why Kantians have to accept that self-killing and euthanasia are contrary to the moral law. Even if some Kantians adhere to this doctrine, others can reject it. Kant thinks that killing ourselves when life bodes ill is wrong. In itself, this does not mean that voluntary euthanasia is wrong, as euthanasia includes the intervention of another person. But if killing yourself is wrong, we may naturally think that killing other people, even if for their own benefit or at their request, or getting others to kill you, are things about which morality may have something to say. So we are now done with the discussion of Immanuel Kant and his right theory. And to end this PowerPoint presentation, I would like to leave a famous quote from Immanuel Kant. In law, a man is guilty when he violates the right of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he only thinks of doing so. So thank you for listening. This has been the Immanuel Kant's Right Theory Group from SocSci 101 and BSBA 1B. Again, thank you and have a good day.